Every single time you send a text, stream a show, or even just unlock your screen, you're dealing with one of the most powerful and, honestly, invisible pieces of software ever created. It's like the ghost in the machine, the engine humming away under the hood of our entire digital world. Yeah, we're talking about the operating system.
Okay, let's dive right into this. You just tapped an icon on your phone. Seems simple enough, right? But in that split second, this incredible, complex chain of events kicked off, and it was all managed by your device's operating system. So what exactly is that system? And how in the world did one version of it come to dominate the entire planet? So here's the game plan. First, we're going to break down what an OS actually does. Then we'll take a quick trip through its history, from these giant mainframes to the phone you're probably holding. After that, we'll zoom in on the incredible rise of Android. And finally, we'll dig into the hidden costs and controversies that came with its global success. I want you to think of your computer or your phone like it's a full orchestra. You've got all the hardware, the processor, the memory, the screen, the speakers. Those are all the different instruments. Well, the operating system, that's the conductor. It's the one making sure every single part plays in perfect harmony to create the music, the experience that you want. At its very core, an OS is the master program that makes your device, well, usable. It's the absolutely essential bridge between you and all the complicated hardware packed inside. Seriously, without it, your phone would just be a very, very expensive paperweight. It translates all your taps and swipes into a language the machine can actually understand and act on. And the list of jobs it has is just staggering. The OS is the ultimate multitasker. It's a traffic cop for data, a librarian for all your files, and a security guard protecting your information. It literally manages every single thing your device does, from the second you hit the power button to the moment you close an app. But this master conductor wasn't always around. The earliest computers were these, brute force machines. Every single program got to talk directly to the raw hardware. And as computers got more and more complex, that approach just became completely impossible to manage. The need for an operating system became absolutely critical. And man, the journey was fast. In 1956, the first real OS was born just to manage a room-sized IBM mainframe. Then the 60s gave us Unix, this revolutionary idea that an OS could actually run on different kinds of computers. In 1981, MS-DOS helped kick off the whole personal computer revolution. And just 27 years after that, boom, Android 1.0 put a powerful, connected OS right in our pockets. And that brings us to our main story. Android. It really is a classic underdog tale, a tiny startup with a kind of quirky idea that just exploded to become the most widely used operating system in the history of the world. Just let that number sink in for a second. 3 billion. That's more active devices than any other operating system ever. From the fanciest smartphones to cheap tablets and smart TVs, the Android ecosystem isn't just big, it's planetary. But here's the crazy part. Android was never supposed to be for phones. Nope. Back in 2003, the founder, Andy Rubin, his big vision was to create a smarter operating system for digital cameras. But the market just wasn't there, and investors, they weren't buying it. So they pivoted. Rubin saw that the real potential was in phones. He imagined creating devices that were more than just for calls. They could be these smart assistants, aware of where you are and what you might need. And that vision, that's what caught the eye of Google, who quietly snapped up the tiny startup in 2005 for at least $50 million. And this is where Google made an absolute game-changing decision. Instead of building a walled garden like Apple was doing with iOS, they did the exact opposite. They decided to give Android away. By making it open source and forming this open handset alliance, they let any manufacturer use and modify the software for free. That single move just ignited the market and paved the way for the very first Android phone in 2008. That whole open strategy, that was the secret sauce to Android's world domination. It created this explosive growth and put affordable smartphones into the hands of billions of people. But as we're about to see, that openness came with a pretty steep price. So let's break down the two main philosophies here. You've got a closed system, like Apple's iOS. Think of it as a walled garden. Apple controls the hardware, the software, everything. It's super consistent and secure, but you're limited. Then you have an open system, like Android. That's more like the Wild West. Anyone can build a phone and slap their own version of Android on it, which creates this incredible choice and makes things way more affordable. And this is where we get to the core conflict of Android's success. There are actually two Androids. First, there's ASOP, the truly open source project. But the Android that you and I probably use, that's powered by something called Google Mobile Services, or GMS. And that is a layer of proprietary closed source apps like the Play Store and Google Maps. Manufacturers have to license GMS from Google, and that's how Google keeps this immense control over a supposedly open ecosystem. So this open hardware idea leads directly to a massive headache for developers called fragmentation. You've got thousands of different Android devices out there, all with different screen sizes, different processors, and all kinds of software tweaks from each company. Trying to make an app that works perfectly on all of them, it's a constant uphill battle. And fragmentation has really serious security consequences. Because Google doesn't control when the phone makers or the carriers push out security updates, tons of devices are just left vulnerable. A huge study from Cambridge University found that a staggering 87.7% of Android phones had known security flaws that just hadn't been patched. So what you end up with is this constantly fractured ecosystem. This chart shows that even when new versions of Android come out, a massive chunk of users, look at this, over a quarter, are left behind on older, unsupported software. And that means they're not just missing out on cool new features, they're missing critical security updates. You know, this all points to a deeper debate. At its heart, Android is built on Linux, which a lot of power users love for how direct and transparent it is. For some people, being able to solve a problem with just a few simple commands is way better than clicking through endless graphical menus that can feel kind of restrictive. It just highlights that constant tension between being easy to use and giving the user real control. Now, Android's massive dominance hasn't gone unnoticed. The company has been dragged into some epic legal battles, including a decade-long war with Oracle over its use of Java. And in 2018, the European Union hit Google with a record-breaking €4.3 billion fine for using Android to crush its competitors. That actually forced Google to change how it bundles its apps and services over in Europe. So in the end, the story of Android is really a story of a double-edged sword. The openness that let it completely conquer the world is the very same thing that created its biggest weaknesses. All the fragmentation, the security risks, and this weird ecosystem where a free core is actually controlled by Google's proprietary layer. It really leaves us with a fundamental question. The operating system on your phone, it promises you all this choice and freedom. But as you tap and swipe and scroll through your day, it's worth asking, in this massive, complicated ecosystem, whose interests, yours, the phone makers, or Google's, are truly being served?